Is the algorithm shaping what we think is true? How often do we trust information online just because someone said it confidently? Should schools be teaching digital literacy as seriously as reading and writing? And if TikTok and social media is the classroom, who is actually doing the teaching? Welcome to the Education Evolution, where we talk about the ways education shapes our world inside the classroom and far beyond it. This This is a podcast for the lifelong learner, for the people who ask deeper questions, and for anyone who knows that learning doesn't stop when school ends. And baby, it's almost officially summer break for all the students, admin, and most importantly, the teachers across the nation. Woohoo! And who replaces the teachers in the summertime? That internet. So today we're talking about TikTok and makeup and digital literacy because yes, a beauty controversy on the internet can actually teach us a lot about how people learn in 2026, and more importantly, how we decide what to trust. And for those that don't know, my name is Lindsay, affectionately known as Miss Black, and I'm excited to get into this conversation today because I'm someone that sees things as interconnected. So I'm going to start with a TikTok story, and we're going to get into some deeper concepts. So I hope that you can stay with me. Before we jump in, I want you to take just 22 seconds to go ahead and subscribe. Yeah, go ahead, subscribe. I mean, you can like the episode now if you want, because I know you're going to like it by the end. And as you are listening, think about someone that you're close to, a loved one, a peer that you think would benefit from hearing what you're about to hear. Let's talk. Recently, beauty TikTok has been buzzing over a conversation around something called transition blush. And if you're not someone that's into makeup, please don't leave. If you've watched any of these videos, hell, this video right now, you see that my face is never beat. It's never beat. Okay. So I'm not a makeup girly, but there's a larger point that's being made with this story. So stay with me. Okay, boom. The discussion gained traction after Nigerian makeup artist Ngozi Esther Deme, known online as Painted by Esther, was widely credited by many viewers for helping popularize the look through her tutorials and celebrity makeup work. And the best, most popular example I can think of is Olandria. You see how her blush is like the main character across her entire face. So it's kind of blended with her concealer. Yeah, that. Okay, the conversation intensified when a Vietnamese beauty brand founder, Patrick Ta, released products using the phrase transition blush and filed trademark paperwork connected to the term. It's interesting. That sparked online debate around who gets credit when a creator helps popularize a trend, what ownership looks like in the digital age, and how quickly social media can spread one version of story before everyone has the full context. Depending on which video showed up on your For You page, if it did, you may have heard a very different version of the story. Some people were talking about where the trend started. Okay, there's a lot of historical context because Esther will tell you herself she didn't invent the trend, but she popularized it. Others were discussing credit and who to give the credit to, and others were talking about influence and visibility. And before long, y'all, a makeup technique became a much bigger conversation online around who taught us this, who gets credit, what's the full story, and how do we know what's actually true when information spreads faster than context? That's where I got curious, okay? Because this really isn't just about makeup. I'm not a makeup girly. I already said that. I'm actually not positive as to how this ended up in my For You page, honestly. Probably because she's a Black woman. Yeah, I think that's probably it. But as a former educator, I was able to see the story through a different lens because to me, this is about the fact that social media has become a pseudo classroom and millions of us are learning there every day, just like you're learning here now. Think about how often we learn online now: recipes, health tips, relationship advice, career advice, beauty techniques, and even the news. And a lot of the time, we trust what we hear very quickly because it sounds informed or it looks polished. It came from a creator we like, or we saw 5 videos saying the same thing. That's really all it takes sometimes. Suddenly, in our brains, it's a fact. See, but then that raises the question: if TikTok is the classroom, okay, who's teaching and are they credentialed? And how do we know whether they actually understand what they're teaching or if they're just repeating what they heard? Since everybody thinks they're social media journalists. The answer is We don't. We don't. We will likely have to go searching for it, which is an extra step, but a necessary one. And this, my friends, is a little thing called digital literacy. Let's define that. Digital literacy is the ability to find, understand, evaluate, and communicate information online responsibly and critically. What does that look like in action, you ask? Well, you can ask yourself before I repost this, before I just believe what Susie Carmichael is saying, what context am I missing? Am I only seeing one perspective? Before I assume this is true, can I verify this somewhere else? Digital literacy is not just can I log on and use the internet, it's can you think clearly while using the internet? Because y'all love to say that the kid is not critically thinking anymore. But honey, the adults have limited their own critical thinking. Are you thinking about what you consume? That actually matters now more than ever because information is coming at us fast, but the context moves slower. And oftentimes you have to go out and intentionally seek it. One thing this conversation really made me think about is how important context is, especially historical context. And I mean that on a lot of levels. Sometimes it's something light and fun, but sometimes it's deeply serious. But either way, context changes how we understand what we're looking at. A simple example is music. A lot of kids, okay, Gen Alpha, they know songs because of movies like Sing. They know that I'm still standing. Love that song. Or Stevie Wonder's Don't You Worry About a Thing. Hmm. They may know every word and absolutely love the songs. And honestly, I think that part is beautiful. They're being introduced to really incredible music early on. But there's another layer available to them when they also know the history behind it. Knowing I'm Still Standing sounds fun in a movie, like that's one thing. Realizing it came from the Elton John, understanding the era he was creating in, the impact he had, ugh. The reason that song became so iconic, that gives music a different kind of meaning. Same with Stevie Wonder. This song already sounds good, but the history gives it depth, it gives its richness. I think about the Met Gala like that too. Stay with me. I'm not the fashion expert in my friend group at all. One of my best friends absolutely is. My mom loves watching all the Met Gala reviews every year on YouTube. Half the time, I'm watching thinking, okay, I understand the theme, but I don't understand what this outfit is doing. Then someone explains that the look is referencing a specific designer or a fashion house or an artistic movement or a silhouette from decades ago. And suddenly the whole thing makes sense. What looked random to me actually was intentionality and action from somebody who better understands historical context in the fashion industry. It's like you finally understand what the artist was actually trying to say because you understand what they were referencing. And then there's a bigger side of all of this history around race and the systems we live in. There have been conversations online where younger people genuinely didn't know who Harriet Tubman was or why Emmett Till mattered. It makes me sad and angry. And that's where historical context becomes so much more than remembering names or dates, because understanding slavery, understanding the civil rights movement, understanding the policies and systems that came out of those periods, that shapes how we understand the world we're living in right now. Whether some people want to deny it or not, it's true. It shapes how we understand access and opportunity. It shapes how we understand why some systems look the way they do. It shapes how we recognize patterns that are still playing out in real time. And to me, that's all part of digital literacy too. It's not only asking whether a post is true, it's asking what led to this, what happened before this moment, what context might I be missing here, and whose perspective do I still need to hear? Because I do be needing to hear multiple perspectives to get a real understanding. Because when we know where something came from, whether that's a song, a fashion reference, or trend online, or a larger historical moment, we're able to engage with it more thoughtfully. And we're also more equipped to notice when history is repeating itself, ding, 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 whether that repetition is moving us towards something better or repeating harm we should have learned from already. And that's why context matters so much. It helps us move through the world with more understanding, more empathy, more curiosity, and a little more awareness about what we're seeing and why the hell it matters. I feel very strongly about that. But enough about my historical context tangent. This is where the education conversation gets real, okay? Because students today are learning online constantly. We have established that so are adults, though. And a lot of us were taught, like the adults, I'm a millennial, we're taught read the textbook, cite the source, show your work. But then how does that translate when we consider a viral clip? How do we verify the information being shared? Is it bias? Am I biased? How do we recognize missing context? Ooh, this the one. How do we challenge an algorithm fed perspective? Because the echo chamber be driving me crazy sometimes, y'all. Like, just because I watch one video don't mean I want to see 50 versions of the video. Like, yeah, I'm looking up lash clusters on TikTok. I don't need to see 20 of them. I want to see Nate the Hoof Guy. Who's Nate the Hoof Guy? He's this guy who like cuts down and cleans the infected hooves of hoofed animals like horses and, and cows. I think that stuff is so amazing. But the algorithm just be aligned to videos that I've seen already. It's just, it's annoying. Another tangent. Digital literacy today feels super important these days, almost as important as traditional literacy. But I can't say that confidently and plainly, honestly, because yes, knowing how to read matters, but knowing how to evaluate information online also matters a lot because it affects a lot of things. It affects how we vote, how we spend money, how we understand our culture or other cultures, how we form opinions. Whether we admit it or not, a lot of real world learning comes from being online. So, as I wrap this up, I want you to think about this. What's something you learned online recently? Can you verify it? Did you hear more than one perspective before you formulated your opinion? How much of what you believe online came from your own research? And how much came from repetition? Like, we got to be honest. We have to ask ourselves these questions. And if social media is teaching us every day, what responsibility do we have as learners engaged in our own learning process? Think about it. This is what lifelong learning looks like now, y'all. And this is literally why we are the podcast for the lifelong learner, facilitating your learning using different perspectives. Some people read books. I'm actually halfway through my goal of 24 books for the year. Then there are some people like my lovely co-host Jihad who invest in formal education because that man got his master's. These are all great ways to keep up with the habit of learning. But when we talk about one of the most accessible ways to learn some new information, it's going to come from the internet. So learning how to think critically in digital spaces is a practice we must intentionally make. Okay. We must hold our loved ones and our peers accountable to do the same. So, my suggestion to you is to pause, slow it down, pause before you post, okay? Pause to listen before you assume, and pause when you engage in conversation with half assed information. It's hard work, okay? But it's worth it. And ask better questions, dig a little deeper. And remember, if it's anything you take away from this episode, speed does not always equal truth, and doing something fast does not make it right. Thank you for listening to the Education Evolution. So happy to have shared this space with you today. And I will see you next time.